Welcome, folks, to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, your host. It's Friday. It is September 1st already. And this morning, it was a kind of brisk, cool day. We had the hurricane and tropical storm blow on through, and maybe that brought in a little bit of cold. And I got to be honest, I'm as always, praying that lives were not disrupted by it. But I am ready for the fall. It's just a shame that it's hurricane season. All right, so, we went over that on Wednesday. I'm not going to get too much into that. We'll have the Q&A, so get your questions in. Laura's going to throw them in the queue for me, and we'll get to as many as I can before the end of the day. But, look, we're going to go through a couple of things, get a little bit back to the economy, because I'm watching this stuff. We're not going to go start with the economy, but I'm watching this stuff. The economy sucks. We're going back to this like new normal thing again. Well, it grew at 2%, and that's not terribly bad. It missed expectations a little bit, but that's good. That's normal. No, it's not. As we showed, I hate to say it, but it's true, whether you like Donald Trump or not. As we showed the world during the Trump administration, we could easily grow at 3% on an annual basis. Before COVID, we were just about to get all four cylinders firing. The housing market was fully kicking in. Builder confidence was rising. And not only were new residential sales, but construction were booming. And that's the one lasting piece, or I would say the ingredient we were looking for going into this Trump economy that was so strong with jobs, so strong with the goods producing sector, which was the major difference between the Obama economy, everybody, Bush, even though Bush wasn't as bad, but certainly was worse than Trump's when it came to this. You either want a service sector economy, a services economy, which, by the way, is not only bad for wages and average people, it's bad for national security. When you don't produce anything, you rely on adversaries to make it for you. And as we saw with the pandemic, the Chinese are not coming to your rescue when you need help. And they're certainly not going to come to your rescue when they have rare minerals that you may need that you no longer mine for. Anyway, manufacturing that you cannot turn into a war machine because you went, the route of banking and those who wait on them when they go out to lunch with their fancy clients every day. You got to pick what economy you want. This economy sucks. Labor force hasn't gone over 63% since Trump was president. Real wage growth was down considerably. Even, listen, corporate profits, it's not like I'm cheering for corporate profits, but corporate profits were down, and they were down terribly. This was a bad week. The ADP jobs report showed private sector employment was basically near anemic. And then look inside the report. It was horrible. The jobs report today confirms that. And this is something every time. The Bureau, this country is so corrupt. It's just so true. This country is so corrupt. DC is so corrupt. Its bureaucracies are so corrupt. We can't even rely on government agencies that deal with hard economic data to tell us the truth. They lied under Obama in order to help him, give him one good jobs report before he had to go against Mitt Romney. And now go look at how many consecutive months the government has claimed job creation was stronger than it was. And then the next month, they revised it down. Now, if this happens, you revise up, you revise down. Go look at how many consecutive months the government said job creation was stronger than it really was. And then you never hear about it because the headline never tells you they revised it down from last month. Last month was not a good job creation month, but we have 25 days of the administration and his allies touting their good numbers that aren't real. They're not freaking real. Meanwhile, under the Trump administration, they literally used an alternative measure of GDP to try to avoid reporting that we did, in fact, grow by 3%, which on an annual basis, which was a goal of the Trump administration and a big, big point of contention during the race against Hillary Clinton. Hillary said this is the new normal and this is good enough. And Trump said it's not good enough. We can hit 3%. We can hit 4%. Everyone laughed. That's nuts. It's just Donald Trump making promises he can't keep. So instead of averaging together the 4 quarters, which is how they reported, there are 2 ways you can report GDP. All through the Obama years, all through the Bush years, that's how they reported GDP. We hit 3% using that measurement, and they decide a year over year is more appropriate. Charles Payne from Fox Business and I are like, we're sitting around that. I'll never forget it. We're sitting around that morning. We get it a couple of minutes before it's embargoed, right? When you're reporting on economic data, a lot of times, especially since you develop sources and stuff, you'll get that before it goes out on Econo Day, before it goes out on the Wall Street Journal, before it's reported, before it goes out on the website, the BLS website, Bureau of Labor Statistics, whatever it may be. In this case, it's the Bureau of Economic Analysis that releases GDP. So we're looking at it, and I'm like, Charles, are you looking at this? In nowhere anyway, because you have to understand, people like Charles and I, he worked in the financial sector. He still does. I did. We have a reverence for listen, that data is sacred. You can't F with that data. You cannot let ideology seep into financial reporting, let alone the sourcing of the data that's being reported. I still have that email. In preparation for the show, I should have brought it up. I didn't even think of it. I should have got it and showed it to you. Excuse me. This is Rich Barris. I'm the editor, the data journalism editor of People's Pundit Daily. Do you have an explanation for why you did this? It was a big FU. We felt like it. And I'm like, Charles, you got to see this. Actually, that's probably still in my Twitter DMs because we were DMing each other. I'm like, he's like, what'd they say? I said, they told me to go for myself. That's what they told me. A bunch of pissed off liberal bureaucrats mad as hell that Trump hit 3%. It's so disgusting. This is where we are. Robert Barnes was on Triggered, which is Donald Trump Jr.'s show yesterday. You really need to go check it out because he explains in great detail how playing the long game, liberals really, why are everything's so messed up? Why is there no truth in anything? No sacred, nothing is sacred. Nothing, because of who runs these institutions, right? They have credentialed people and they dominate the law. And because they dominate the law, you can't expect the judge to be honest enough, because where are they tapping judgeships from? These bureaucracies. Who goes to work at the federal government? A conservative who's good with numbers is going to go work in the private sector and make money. Who's going to go to the civil servant jobs in DC and do this? Exactly. It's disgraceful. That's why the whole damn thing, honestly, it's got to go. It's got to go. It's like the DC jury system, which Robert made a comment. Before I move on to Florida, I just want to bring this up. Robert made a comment. He told Trump Jr., he told Don that, Rich Barris has been doing this for a long time. And Barnes, you could have said it yourself, too. You know that this is stuff you and I have partnered on for years together. DC is one of them. I just did some extra stuff 1 year. So, knowing in anticipation this was going to happen. So we started when the January 6 people were being sentenced. or facing whether or not they wanted to go to a trial. That's when we really started it. So, I mean, the credit goes to Barnes too. 4% in DC voted for Donald Trump. Okay. When we did the research that we have done indicates that really only about 4%, even though it's not the vote, because only about 4% are sympathetic to Donald Trump. I think it just so happens that it came in that way. I don't think that's like 100% overlap. I voted for him, and I don't think that's what happened there. Over 90% said they have predetermined that Donald Trump incited an insurrection. And, that's it. I mean, no matter what we show them, they cannot be persuaded. You could show them videotape of the guards opening the doors. It doesn't matter. You can show them documents of Nancy Pelosi denying Trump's request. Well, Nancy, why don't you beef up security? It doesn't matter what you show them. They're ideologically possessed. They see the fact pattern through the lens of their own belief systems, as we all do. But they're totally incapable of cleaning that lens even for a moment in the face of overwhelming evidence. They can't do it. Some people said they didn't know, and about 3.8% said that they did not believe it was an insurrection and that this thing is being overblown. That's it. Robert made the comment that Martin Luther King could have gotten a better, fair jury in Birmingham, Alabama, in the civil rights movement than Donald Trump can get in DC. And it was like, oh my God, you have to see these liberals like, their heads exploding. What he said is 100% true. There are two things we look at when we're talking about jury selection. Is process, and frankly, some places are just corrupt. If you rewound time, got your time machine, went back to Birmingham, Alabama in the 50s or even the 60s, you're going to see that, probably if Martin Luther King was facing it, they would prevent blacks from being on the jury. Yeah, they were corrupt. Guess what? DC is just as corrupt, if not worse. Worse. The only difference is we're dealing with race here. In DC, we're dealing with power and ideology. And frankly, fanaticism. Fanaticism. It's different than racism. But regardless, process, let's just be generous and say those two cancel each other out. Birmingham process is just as shitty as the one in DC. Just as unfair, just as corrupt, just as crooked. That leaves us with the eligible juror pool. Well, I wasn't around back then to conduct voir dire, but I can tell you, going back into the Gallup archives, which I have, about 1 in 4, about 25% of white Southerners, to include Alabama, it's not that far off, it's 26%. Mississippi's like 22. So depending on the different states, but overall the South is about 25% of white Southerners were sympathetic to Martin Luther King and his civil rights cause. So what does that mean? In Alabama, it's 24%. It means that Martin Luther King, his chance of getting a more favorable jury, or at least a juror who's sympathetic to him, is 6 times, a factor of 6 more likely than Donald Trump getting one in DC. What he said is true. So put your liberal earplugs back in, keep the hot air from blowing out of the side of them. Take your blinders off. It's astonishing to say that. Think about that. Think about everything we heard about the Jim Crow era and the pre-Civil Rights Act South. Think about it. And yet it is 100% true that the DC system is so politicized, so corrupt, so biased. The juror pool is so ideologically possessed that MLK could have got a more fair trial by jury in Birmingham, Alabama in the 50s than Donald Trump can get in the year 2023, and it will be 24, in the District of Columbia. It's shocking, but it's true. Makes me want to vomit, frankly. And yet, by the way, the rest of the country does not feel that way. Here we go. I went on locals. I asked for all your opinions on how you like this new press release format. We're simply trying to make it easier for the media is friggin' lazy. They're lazy, folks. So if you want them to cover your stuff, you got to feed it to them on a silver platter. That's just the truth. Plus, we want people to be able to share it more. Locals gets it first, and YouTube members, I just try to, when I can, when it's possible, without somebody like, because unfortunately, what happens, the no share rule was not abided by last time, and somebody took it and just ran with it all over Twitter. That kind of kills the point of giving it to locals only supporters and members only of YouTube. But as we've said, use the code for locals. We are trying to move everybody over there. It's just easier. And I just don't trust YouTube. Plus, you're giving a ton of money to them. When you give them your money, they're taking 30+%, depending on what you're giving me. They're taking 30+%, upwards of 40% right off clip. Bang, gone. Locals does not do that. So if you really want to support, plus locals is a community. Now, I get it. The YouTube platform is dope. When it comes to watching video, it is. And especially when we're having our election events and specials that are, only for those who are supporters on locals and those who are members on YouTube. I get it. I do. So I'm not going to continue to beat you over the head with it, but I am going to encourage you to move over to locals. That being said, I asked locals, you're going to get it first, obviously. And then there'll be a point when we put it out in our press release blog area. All right, where we'll have everything from poll results to we're not just poll results, but press releases for poll results. We have the portfolio section that is going to have all of the tracking stuff in it. So the Republican nomination, we're putting one together for that. Joe Biden's approval rating, all presidents and their approval rating, right track, wrong track, the generic ballot when it comes time, okay? Things like that. That'll be in the portfolio section. But when a poll is released, we're going to put out basically what is a blog post about it. So, with a comment from me, here's how we did it, a methodology statement, links to the crosstabs, graphics to make it easy for people to understand, et cetera, et cetera. But in the blog section as well, speaking of voir dire, we were just talking about jury research. You could see that I authored a little something called Survey Guidelines for Jury Research. It's pretty fascinating stuff. So check it out. And there will be a bunch of backdated polls in there. So we've done a lot of polls that are not in this blog section. So we're going to go back, starting with the one we released last week nationally. And we're going to put up one for that. Florida for the last 2-3 months, whatever it's been. Iowa, all of it. And the last one we had was our final generic ballot, or second to final generic ballot, I think. It's spotty. It's been hit and miss. There's one about UFO beliefs in there. That was really cool. I had the idea to do it back then. I just didn't keep up with it. I was more concerned about giving it to locals first. And now I can do both without a problem. So anyway, without further ado, because it's 12:19, here is it. Thank you, locals, for your suggestions. I have taken them all into consideration. And I will, there's some people who really just like the numbers. And then there are some people who like illustrations. And I am taking critiques from all, and I will try to make it easy for all of you to, to get what you really want. People lost their minds when they saw this poll. That's tough crap. I don't know what to say. Again, jealousy doesn't look good on you, hack GOP pollsters. Jealousy is not a good look on you. Poll Florida one time, just one time. I dare you. Poll it one time correctly, and then come back and speak to me. You'll notice what I did at the end of these two. I put with links, all the track record. You got no. Can you say that you came within 0.2% of the result in 2016? Can you say that you forecasted Rick Scott's win for governor in 2014 within 5,000 votes? Can you say that you knew Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis were going to win in 2018? Because there's only one other person I know who did. No, Robert Cahaley did too. He did. And yeah, me, right. I mean, they can't do that. And Robert Cahaley, I believe, was right as well. In 2020, we took it right off the mat in September because we knew that Trump was going to win. Sorry, guys, I was 0.7% off the margin that time. When you have a record like that, come back and speak to me. And some of these people I'm not even going to mention by name because it's not worth me elevating them. They're clearly jealous. I'm more successful than them. Obviously, I'm a happier man at home than them. I mean, I think people are down. They're minimizing the importance of that. Like your miserable political career is all you got, apparently. I'm sorry, I have the love of a good woman and children that I love to death, and I'm doing a decent job raising if I do say so myself. You have nothing but your hate and jealousy, and it's pathetic. And all your stupid smears. So let me get this straight. So despite all of my troubles almost 20 years ago, I still have a better life than you. So pathetic. Anyway, let's get to the nitty-gritty and the crunch of it all. It shouldn't even be like this. Everybody knows my record, period, and my record in Florida. Everybody knows. Everybody knows it. You're not tricking anybody. Like taking a poll from April and pretending that was my final poll. I didn't even have to say anything. Individual Twitter users and conservative personalities were like, that's fake news. And by the way, I just have to say this. It sucks because grassroots voices are important. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the straw poll that came out yesterday that people were touting, Gavin Wax obviously supports Donald Trump. My point was not to confirm Gavin Wax, and what he was saying. My point was to look and see whether Gavin was telling the truth because it's polling. And the truth of the matter is they put up the results as if it was final of a poll that was still open. And then I went into the poll to look at it and examine it. There was no duplicate response protection, which means, folks, you could take it a million times and skew this isn't a methodology debate. That showed us, it's like the equivalent. It's not though, Laura, because you can only take a Twitter poll once, and then you can forward it to your friends outside of the target universe, which is supposed to be within this activist group. And they kept, even though it was very clear that this poll was a tainted, not credible poll, they for hours kept arguing with Gavin and others. Like, there's nothing to argue about here. This isn't a debate over methodology. This is best practices that were violated. No online poll is credible if it doesn't have duplicate response protection and protection against forwarding. If there's a target population. There's some marketing surveys you could do if you wanted to, where forwarding is appropriate. But if you're trying to conduct a poll scientifically of a target population, like an activist group or nationwide young Republicans club, whatever that group was, you cannot allow them to send that survey outside the target audience. When Robert Cahaley and I do straw polls for CPAC or Turning Point USA or any straw poll, folks. I've done union votes with our software before. In the past, we've conducted union votes. You cannot allow duplicate responses, and you cannot allow that survey to be forwarded out. Each respondent, whether you have an email list, whatever you may have, maybe they're taking it at tablets at an event or something, must have its own response ID. You can use cookies and IP and a whole bunch of other technology to block duplicate responses. It's actually easy to do. This is basic common knowledge stuff for people who actually do this for a living. And it really exposed who is just the fakes on Twitter who pretend to be polling experts. All they did yesterday and last night with that is show all of us. And by the way, a lot of people in the media, because they're begging the media to cover it, Well, those of us like Paul Bedard at the Washington Examiner who covers polls, right? Or you have what's his name over at Breitbart, and you have what's her name over at Fox News, and I'm forgetting them, and I'm sorry, but forget about the guys at Real Clear Politics. All you did was show those people and people like me who do this for a living. You have no idea what in Sam hell you're talking about. You should stop pretending to be an expert on polling on Twitter, like what's his name, Bitchell, who goes on and makes these stupid videos saying things that everybody knows is false about polling, like how it's hard to reach more educated people. Anyone who's been following People's Pundit for any amount of time knows that's the complete opposite. Nobody, Murphy from the National Exit Poll, nobody has ever done a study and shown or concluded or argued that our real problem is reaching the educated voter in the metro areas. He's an idiot. He's a fraud. And without me being friendly to him so he can steal my polling data, which all his former associates told me he did, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And if you still think he does after yesterday, then you're an idiot too. Florida poll, Trump holds commanding lead over Biden in the 2024 rematch. Latino and new voters are helping fuel Trump's dominance, but many are Trump or bust, which is what this graphic is showing here. Many of you, this won't be new to, but just bear with me. All right. Roughly 30% of Trump's primary vote said that they would write him in if he is not the nominee. We're talking about 2% for others. Nothing big, very small. And even collectively, you can see when it's against Biden, it's a statistically insignificant 2% who said they would write in someone else if it's Trump or Biden. Trump is crushing Biden in the state of Florida right now. He is up 45 to 36.9. Let's round up for him and be nice, 37%. Almost all of the other vote is a I don't like Biden vote, but Trump is probably going to get some of that anyway at the end of the day, and he definitely does take the undecideds when they are leaned. That being said, what his real strength is here is, and I said Latino and new voters, but there are a lot of very overlapping groups, under some college and associate degree and below. Those, even if they're registered Republicans, those who identify as independents, non-white voters. This comes to when, some people who said they would write him in when we asked about DeSantis versus Biden, some of them, chose somebody. Most of them said 95%. 95% wrote Trump in. So between that and others, because that doesn't equal 7%. The 7% comes from the addition of people who are not eligible to vote in the Republican primary, who didn't get that question. But then when they got to the head-to-heads, they still wrote in Donald Trump anyway. As this was going on, I isolated Hispanics and independents. With those who wrote, Laura, as God is my witness, am I or am I not 100% telling the truth when I say that every single write-in done by an independent Hispanic was for Donald Trump? Every single one. Fact, she said, not 95%. 95 is overall. Not 96%, not 97%, 98, 99, 99.2, 99.5, 99.9. Every single one. 100% of them. This stuff doesn't happen. And every time I see something like that, all I can think about is I flash back to the post-2012 autopsy that Republicans did with friggin' Reince Priebus and Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan touting this report. The report prescribes a Republican platform that appeals to this coalition. What a lie. Now they have it, and they're forsaking these people. Donald Trump holds a commanding lead over Joe Biden in the latest Florida poll conducted by Big Data Poll for August. Meanwhile, Republican and independent voters' loyalties to the former president are making a hypothetical matchup between the sitting governor and the president too close to call. The Sunshine State poll, which I am calling them now. I'm telling you guys right now, I'll interchange like Florida poll, the Georgia poll, and then the nickname of the state with the poll. I am remove the word battleground. I am not doing that anymore because frankly, it depending on the candidate, it may not be a battleground. Ohio, the Buckeye State battleground poll, right? Or the Buckeye, whatever it was. That's what we used to call them. We always did the nicknames with the battleground. I'm removing the word battleground from now on. It will just be the Sunshine State poll, the Hawkeye State poll, the Buckeye State poll, the Wolverine State poll, the Badger State poll. Got it? Things change. Demographic shifts, coalition shifts, and we still may be calling a state that's like D+10 a battleground poll. It's not. The Sunshine State poll conducted in the final days of August finds the former president leads the sitting president 45 to 36.7. With Cornel West, and let's scroll down, Trump leads by a slightly larger margin, 45.5 to 36.8. Notice with Cornel West on the ballot, Biden actually ticks up 1/10 of a percentage point, but Trump's margin expands because he gains a point. With West on the ballot, President Biden fares better against Governor DeSantis. The two are in a statistical tie at 37.8% to 37.5%, respectively. With West on the ballot, Biden and DeSantis are tied exactly at 37.3%. So DeSantis loses 0.2 of a percentage point with West on the ballot. Donald Trump gains a point. Joe Biden gains 1/10 of a percentage point with West on the ballot against Trump, but he actually gains, let me just make sure, he drops 0.5 of a percentage point with West on the ballot. The disparity, this is a little comment I'm going to read. It is from me. I'm going to ignore that it's a quote because I'm just going to say it as if I'm telling you now. The disparity between Trump and DeSantis in performance against Biden is almost exclusively due to the former president's supporters saying that they would write his name in if he was not the nominee. Roughly 3 in 10 of Trump's primary supporters indicated that they would do that, and 93 to 95% of write-ins chose him in the two hypothetical matchups. It depends whether West is in the ballot or not. That's 93 to 95%. We've been measuring the Trump or bust vote, folks, across the country for months. You guys know that. It is clearly a force, even in Governor DeSantis' home state. As a result, Trump outperforms DeSantis among pivotal demographic groups needed to win the largest battleground state in the nation at the presidential level. In 22, the governor won re-election by an overwhelming 19-point margin. But these contests are poor indicators of performance on the presidential level. And for myriad reasons, we've gone over a million times, but also voter sentiment has shifted considerably. We heard from scores of people who said, I voted for Governor DeSantis in 22. If they were midterm voters, we heard that a lot. But I'm still, that was for governor, not for president. I vote Democrat at the presidential level. And then also, there were people who did not vote in 2022. And they are, go look at the vote history, which we will in a bit, actually. I'm going to show you crosstabs in more detail, obviously, after we're done with this. When asked Hispanics who voted in 2020. Oh, wait. That being said, there are major shifts among key voting blocks that support Biden over Trump in 2020, to include Hispanic and new voters. When asked, Hispanics who voted in 2020 indicated they supported Biden, as they did, by the way, by I think 4 points, something like that. But now they support Trump by a 14-point margin. I'm not talking about Cubans. I'm not talking about Venezuelans. I'm talking about statewide. Donald Trump leads Joe Biden with Hispanics 46.5 to 32.8. Donald Trump is carrying Hispanics in the state of Florida at the presidential level. Similarly, new voters backed Biden by 6 points in 2020. 52 I rounded, I guess. It should be 5 because we gave the whole number here. 52 to 47. But now They backed Trump by 8 points for 2024. And here I'm going to actually do that in a second. In other words, Trump is already outperforming his 2020 vote share with these groups, while Biden is significantly underperforming. And as soon as this loads up, I am going to change that. I guess I rounded the new voter number. And where are you? Let me just change it. It is technically, if you round, 6 points, but since we're not rounding and we're just giving wholes, I'm in the middle of the show and don't want to go through all that right now. I'm just going to change it to 5. And because both are, it really is accurate. Anyway, Trump is outperforming. Biden is underperforming, but DeSantis is underperforming Trump so much that he's not able to capitalize on Biden's underperformance. And the reason that he is underperforming Trump so much is twofold. Trump has better appeal to some of these voters in a presidential cycle. And then, of course, a massive number of Trump's voters are going to write his name on the ballot. And by the way, in Florida, that will absolutely be possible to do. So if you think for a second these people are lying or bluffing, you're a fool. It's going to happen. Florida, by the way, does have traditionally during gubernatorial elections, especially 18 is a great example of this. Yes, it's true that DeSantis won with more vote by a larger vote margin than Rick Scott. Rick Scott was in a two-way race with Bill Nelson. The only reason why DeSantis won, Rick Scott won more votes or more of the vote. He was in a majority, slight bare majority, was like 11,000 votes or something. It was very close. But DeSantis won by 30,000. But DeSantis was in a race with it was a 7-way race. And DeSantis won the 18 gubernatorial election without a majority. He never hit a majority. So this is worth pointing out. Florida does vote for obscure third parties, maybe 2.5%. You can expect that to happen. It's got a long history of doing it. Ralph Nader, Ross Perot, it's got a long history. I got to say this. I'm just going to say this as like a quote right now. It's been over a decade since I started publicly polling the great state of Florida. It's been over a decade. I have never seen a presidential lead this large. And the last lead was large as well. It's Florida. At the presidential level, this doesn't happen. We've seen Senate races that were blowouts. We've seen gubernatorial elections that were blowouts. Charlie Crist was popular at one point. Jeb Bush, go look at how much he won re-election by. We've seen blowouts like the one DeSantis enjoyed in 2022. And then it goes on to being a razor-thin race at the presidential level. I have never seen a candidate take an 8-point lead in the state of Florida. Ever, 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 ever. Now, you can go and look at the aggregate polling averages that are filled with garbage, like the haters I was talking about in the beginning of the show. They can't poll Florida for shit. They, Gillum plus 12s and, this, and Trump is never overestimated, by the way. I find it funny. Most Republicans are never underestimated in Florida, but you can get these massive leads. Bill Nelson plus 6 and 8 and this and crazy stuff. Hillary Clinton plus 6, Nate Cohen at the New York Times. Joe Biden plus 6, Nate Cohen at the New York Times. Andrew Gillum plus 8, Nate Cohen at the New York Times. When in reality, these races are decided by, Trump's almost 4-point, over 3-point win. Let's call it that. In 2020 was a freaking blowout for the state of Florida. A blowout. The biggest blowout since George W. Bush in 2004, when he won by a little over 4 points. And by the way, Trump did just as well as George W. Bush and Miami-Dade, only it was a lot whiter in 2004 than it was when Trump got 47%. Now Trump's going to take Miami-Dade. And people can go on and on about DeSantis getting Miami-Dade in 2022. Again, Republicans have carried it at the gubernatorial level before. Then they go on to lose it. Their own brother goes on to lose it. the next cycle. Gubernatorial elections are not the same. DeSantis is performing rather poorly against Joe Biden in Miami-Dade. His best area is like the Tampa area, and he does better than expected in Duval, considering his overall number. But he's not getting these Hispanics and independent Hispanics, particularly. He's not getting this influx of independent Puerto Ricans in the corridor. It's just not happening. So make no mistake, this is a very significant poll result, given how close this state has been in the past. Okay. We have always been much, much more conservative with our estimates in Florida. Rick Scott, I went back and looked. The biggest lead we ever found for anybody in the state of Florida was a poll conducted in the spring of 2018 that had Rick Scott up by 6 over Bill Nelson. That faded after that one poll, and it went back to a 2-point lead. 1.2 point, but a solid. You could see it solidly, and Rick Scott was going to win. That is a Senate election still, not a presidential election. It's a big deal. Listen, we also asked eligible primary voters about their primary preference for president. Trump held a widening lead over DeSantis, 56.8 to 18.1. You guys know this. You want to go check it out. The link's here. Up from 52.5 to 36.6, 32.6 in margin in June. And again, just a real quick recap. Most significant movement this month. And by the way, Trump ended in the phone interviews above 60. Laura and I just looked at it. He did. He ended above 60, and DeSantis was at 16%. And the phone has always been DeSantis' stronger mode of collection. No more. It's just it's a blowout, a total blowout. White voters have shifted to Trump. Some of them have gone to Nikki Haley. Some of them have gone to Vivek Ramaswamy. But, DeSantis collapsed from 30+% vote share among white voters to the teens. I think maybe, wait. Let me just be careful. Let me be careful. Let me make sure that's right. I don't want to say something that's not true. I'm waiting for the crosstab to load up. White vote. No. Okay. Trump ended with 57.1. DeSantis ended with 21.9. Also, what was the major secondary, still major shift was DeSantis' collapse with Hispanics. Trump was always winning them. He was winning them handily. It went from 61 but he was winning them like 61 to 20. Now Trump's winning them 64 to 9. So, of course, that's going to have a huge impact. But the white vote is what allowed Trump to blow open his lead in the Panhandle and the Orlando, Atlantic coast area. And it's all through the Space Coast. He was killing it already. And Tampa was closer, but he was beating him pretty handily in Tampa, beating him pretty handily in Miami-Dade, even beating him in the Northeast, which is insane, but he was. Now DeSantis' support is pretty much, like I said, on Wednesday, relegated to the Capitol, and then he has some sparse support here and there. We went over that map. I'm not going to go over it again. I want to get to the crosstabs in more detail. But that's where it is. Let's real quick word on methodology before we go into the crosstabs. I'm not going to go ahead and boast the record. That's just me sticking my finger in people's eye or the wound. I'm starting to throw salt on that shit, folks. I'm tired of this. I'm over it. I'm not playing Mr. Nice Guy anymore. They want the bad guy they keep bringing up. You got him. Yeah, no, don't worry. Laura's not going to let me go full of that guy. She just won't let it happen. But you want to see, you looking for a fight? Then you got one. Methodology, we interviewed 1419. Actually, there will be a data append, like I told you, locals. Registered voters, it will be over 1,600. And likely voters will go up with it, but you'll see it does not change significantly. And we did from the 27th to the 28th. There just were some that trickled in on the 29th. This was done via mixed mode to include 1,316 likely voters who were screened by self-reported likelihood to vote and vote history. Interviews conducted online or sourced through Lucid, now. and phone interviews, including P2P, SMS, and text to online, all sourced, matched to the Aristotle National Voter File Database. Likely primary voters were screened for eligibility by registration and intent due to the Florida's closed primary system. You will see when you go to the primary stuff, you'll see that is self-identification. That's why you'll see in both the Democrat and the Republican primary, there aren't as many independent, like if you combine them, there aren't as many independents as there are in the general election. That's because there aren't 30% independents, folks. And that's just not the way it is. There are people who are 20% roughly of the Republican primary electorate call themselves independent, even though they are eligible or, to vote in the Republican primary. They are partisan registrations. And by the way, go look at the 2016 exit polls in Florida for the Republican primary. You'll see it's a little bit less than that. So this is ballpark what it is. And why does the exit polls see that? They're trying to look for the more moderate element, or maybe people who don't even really consider themselves strong Republicans anymore. So they're there. I just didn't want to cause confusion, so I wanted to clarify that. Results were weighted for gender, age, race, education, and region. Honestly, very, very light weighting footprint. Sampling was very well done, very representative. I'm talking about light footprint. The overall sampling error was 2.7. The sampling error for Republican and Democratic nominations, 3.8 and 4.1, respectively. Listen again, it's important to note that sampling errors for subgroups are higher. And guess what? This is going to be added to everything because I'm tired of this crap. All big data poll publicly conducted surveys are crowdfunded via the Public Polling Project, supplemented if necessary, which has happened. We talked about this by big data poll, meaning we do it, and are not funded by or affiliated with any candidate, campaign, committee, or political entity. These are crowd-funded or big data poll supplemented, if necessary, public polls. This crap people are saying, like, years ago, you weren't able to just like make crap up like this. It's just not just me. Emerson and Spencer at Emerson, he has a grant, you stupid idiot. He's not getting money from a candidate. He's got a grant. But again, you're not a damn pollster, so you don't know what you're talking about. The only ones that are out there being paid, putting stuff out routinely, being paid by a candidate are Never Back Down is paying Public Opinion Strategy, or excuse me, WPA Intel, Chris Wilson's group. The DeSantis campaign are paying Public Opinion Strategies. The McLaughlin group is getting, or McLaughlin and Associates, John McLaughlin and his brother, they're getting paid by Trump. And Fabrizio is getting paid by Trump. Those are the only ones that are routinely out there. Trafalgar, Robert Cahaley, and I do not get paid by Trump or any other candidate. Spencer Kimball is an academic, you stupid tool. He gets a grant from the college. And by the way, I know that college. They do not want results showing Donald Trump beating your guy. Will they let it go because that's what it is? If it is what it is, if Spencer says that's it, of course. But they're not dying to see him beating everyone in the primary by 45 points and then going on and beating Joe Biden, who they like and voted for. Just tell people that you're just a big mouth pundit. You're there for supposed entertainment value. You are not an expert in anything other than showing yourself to be an ignorant piece of shit. But do not pretend to be a pollster. You're not. A word on regional definitions. Worth noting, the national exit polls conducted by Edison Research, for instance, they will combine North Central Florida, 10%, and the Panhandle, 8%, into North Panhandle. That's what you will see in the exit polls if you look it up. You know, I really love to make everything nice and consistent for you guys, so it's the easiest to explain and understand. Anyone, believe me, anyone can understand at least the very basics of this stuff. We at Big Data Poll have long separated those two regions to ensure more accurate representation due to higher participation rates and higher population centers and metro areas. So, for instance, Gadsden, Leon, they are high population centers, along with Jacksonville, also in the north. It is very simple or very easy for you to gather up a ton of responses that do fall in these two regional definitions. But because they are so heavily Jacksonville, Gadsden, Leon, you're underrepresenting the more suburban and rural, even urban areas, by the way, in like Pensacola and Panama City. It's very simple to have that happen, and that will screw up your margin in that region, which obviously you're probably going to apply a small weight, variable to. It will knock your results out of whack. I tried to explain to Nate Cohen at the New York Times that this is what he did in 2016 and 2018, along with not realizing that his independent sample was only from liberal areas. Several other things as well. And I tried to explain this to him. He didn't listen. So that's why it looks like, Biden's doing so much better in the North than he actually does. And then the exit polls come in and Trump is winning it. And he's like, oh my God, what happened? I thought Biden was going to carry it by 1 or 2. Right, because you pulled Duval County and Gadsden and Leon, and that's it. You miss Bay County, where he's going to net 40,000 votes alone. You miss Liberty. You miss Escambia. So we separate them. Escambia, Okaloosa, Santa Rosa, Walton, Bay, Calhoun, Franklin, Gadsden, Gulf, Holmes, Jackson, Jefferson, Leon, Liberty, Madison, Taylor, Wakulla, and Washington. That's the Panhandle. North Central Florida, Alachua, Bradford, Citrus, Columbia, Dixie, Gilchrist, Hamilton, Hernando, Lafayette, Lake, Levi, Marion, Putnam, Sumter, Sewanee, Union, Baker, Clay, Duval, Flagler, love Flagler, Nassau, St. John's, and Volusia. That is North Central. If you break this up, you will see in the exit polls, it's roughly, I want to say in the last 2 presidential cycles, that region together, the North Panhandle region, it's like 18% of the vote statewide, close to 20% of the vote. This is 8. This is why we break it up. This is 8. And even when we include Gadsden and Leon, what we find is that that's generally where Democrats get votes compared to everywhere else. It's going to be very Republican. You can literally get a 90-10 if you don't keep Gadsden. Because I do have people tell me that they remove Gadsden and Leon from Panhandle and put it into the North. And that's fine. You do it your way. But I'm doing it this way because it's just more correct to do it this way, right? Because Escambia, Okaloosa, Santa Rosa, all these are going to come in as a Republican response. They're going to choose the Republican candidate. I mean, overwhelmingly, more than the Republicans will win the Panhandle. So if you don't have Gadsden and Leon in there, you're not going to get the Democrats 20-30%. At least that's my personal experience. North Central Florida, Gator Nation, baby, Gators, go Gators. Alachua, which is Gainesville, Bradford, Citrus, Columbia, Dixie, Gilchrist, Hamilton, Hernando, Lafayette, Lake, Levi, Marion, Putnam, Sumter, Sewanee, Union, Baker, Clay, Duval, Flagler. Oh, I did this already, right? So, right, that's 10%. All right, moving on, Orlando, Atlantic Coast. Obviously, you guys can check this out for yourself. The Atlantic Coast, the Palm Coast, right? A little bit north, yeah. So Palm Beach, St. Lucie, all of that. Indian River, Seminole, Osceola. By the way, these hurricanes come through, and I just brought it up to Laura, but I do it like every time there's a hurricane. If you live in this area, I love to go to the museums. Even in Alachua by Gainesville, folks at the University of Florida, they have an incredible museum. And for different things, it depends what your interest is, but very cool for dinosaurs, very cool for the Indians that once had a thriving culture there, Native Americans, the Seminoles, and others. I'm just astonished by how they survived in the society that they had. And not only they survived, They thrived before we got there, or Europeans. It's like I'm just imagining what it's like to be in a teepee during Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Irma literally picked me up. The wind literally picked me up. It's unbelievable. What an incredible achievement. An incredible group of people. So fascinating. A lot of good history here. A lot of good stuff to do here. A lot of good sites. The Tampa Bay area, Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough. This is why Trump is doing so much better in the Tampa Bay area than DeSantis is. Trump is doing better with those Hispanics that I was just talking about that aren't typically, right-leaning Hispanics in Florida. Puerto Rican voters, for instance, that are Hispanic descent. They're Puerto Rican descent, excuse me. There's a lot of them in Hillsborough in the corridor period, but in going into the Tampa area in Hillsborough, that's what caused Hillsborough, which was once a bellwether, to become more really just a Democratic county. Trump certainly swung it a lot back in 2020, but he didn't carry it. I actually think there is a really good chance he sweeps all three of those counties. Southeast Gold Coast, Miami-Dade, which he will carry. Broward, he won't, but he'll get a higher vote share. And Palm Beach. By the way, funny thing about Broward County, Republicans get in like the 20s for years as Brenda Snipes is there. She's fired and removed by Governor DeSantis, and everyone's vote share goes up on the Republican ticket. It's like naivety. Like we're all supposed to believe they don't cheat or something. Of course they cheat. Everyone knows they cheat. Stop pretending as if they don't. We have to stop giving legitimacy to some of these absolute ridiculous claims. Like, for instance, a jury trial in DC is fair. Like, that is not a legitimate trial. That is a show trial. Again, watch the interview that Barnes had with Trump Jr. yesterday. I think he delivered. He acquitted himself really well, and he brought up a bunch of things that it wasn't just an interview with the guy's son. This was Barnes explaining why, it's why so many people follow him and listen to him. So he knows more than just the law. He's a student of history, and without a doubt, the only the comparisons he made are the correct ones to make, and the only way he agrees with what I just said. The only way, not the only way, but the first thing you must do, or any citizenship must do when this happens, is remove the credibility of all of this. This is not credible. Don't treat it like it is. Because then, when they come for you or your loved ones, everyone is going to think it's credible. Who's going to help you? Yeah, and then there was no one left. Right, exactly. And then the Southwest Gulf, mid-Florida area is super Trumpy. Collier County. Charlotte, DeSoto, Glades. Actually, Rubio did good in DeSoto last time. Hendry, Lee, Sarasota, Monroe. I love Sarasota. I love them all, but Monroe, Hardy, Highlands, Manatee, and Polk. It's just the Siesta Keys. Oof. Amen. All right, let's get to, it's 12:30. 12:59, and I want to get to a bunch of other stories. So just go and check out the crosstabs, which you're going to see here in a second. Go check them out. They're super, super informative. Look at the certainty to vote. Don't pass up things. Don't go right to the horse race. There is a lot of good data in there. Go look and see who is the Trump or bust vote. Who are these people? And also, who's going to vote? Look, and you may notice, nationally, we have found now several times in a row this year that Hispanics are actually more likely to vote than blacks in self-reported likelihood to vote. That is not normal. That for us, that has never happened. And I actually went back and I looked. That has never happened. It's always white voters have the most certainty, then black and Asian voters, then Hispanic voters, and other races after. This is kind of like 45, the age group 45 to 64 is saying they're more likely to vote than the 65 plus. This just doesn't happen. So Hispanics are going to flex their muscles this year. It looks like more than they normally do. 16% of the Republican primary electorate in 2016 for the nomination last time in Florida. This time, I'm thinking it's going to be more like 21, 22%. And in the general, that will matter. We've seen it nationally, and now we see it in Florida as well. Hispanics, they didn't do this in 2022. They did not come out in the numbers, especially certain Hispanics, that a lot of Republicans in Texas needed them to come out. A lot of people like Adam Laxalt needed them to come out. Those kinds of Hispanics that will vote for that. A lot of Republicans almost lost in California. I can name 3 off the top of my head right now. And they probably will lose if they don't win these votes. So, very, very important stuff in there. Good nuggets of information. Don't just look at the headlines and run away from it, okay? All right, let's get to our advertisers. And when we oh no, wait, I don't have that advertiser today. Ooh, we can move on. Let's see. What did I want to go to next? I think I want to go to these stories about DeSantis' campaign, and then we'll get into the Q&A. I already did the economy a little bit. Yeah, I know. I'm saying the collapse of this guy coincided with the financial situation. I had told you guys that for those of us who know how to read disclosures and know what burn rates are and how to calculate them, and also, I mean, it's a matter of, can you get more money to sustain the burn rate? I told you it was only a matter of time before this was going to happen. All right. So there's 2 stories I want to read you. Really, there's a bunch. But there's 2 stories I want to read you about DeSantis' financial situation, which absolutely is dire. And I told you it was, and what happened? All these same idiots that we all have to deal with all the time are going on and on about how I don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. They didn't know they were broke until June 30th. All right. Fresh roasted coffee subscriptions always ships free. Listen, I'm just going to go there and check out some of them, whether it's coffee, K-cups freshly roasted, or whether it is their syrup or their delicious gourmet popcorn. By the way, let me just show you guys this one my son and I tried. It was absolutely fantastic. Just to give you a little bit of a tip, the vanilla blueberry, and I don't like, as Laura, she'll tell you, I like them, but I don't like the sweet stuff as much as I like sour cream and chives, for instance, or buffalo, or the Chicago mix was delicious. I like the rich, savory ones. This one was really good. It was my son's favorite off the bat, which I couldn't believe because he's like me, but I get why he said the vanilla blueberry is like a perfect compliment. It's to die for. Right? This company is owned by patriots. It's Michigan based. These guys were complete and total patriots during the COVID tyranny, but also they have a fantastic product. The bottom line, if you go to Jam and Bean right now, sign up for a new subscription, use the TPP40 promo code. And some people told me they had issues. It was an update that broke the code, but it's fixed now. So TPP40 will get you 40% off that new subscription right off the jump. And every time your subscription renews, you will still get 10% off. Okay, just from being my viewer, my watcher, my subscriber, whatever it is, for being a People's Pundit supporter. All right. So again, Jam and Bean, it's up on the screen right there. Laura's got it. jamandbean.com. Use the promo code TPP40 on your new subscription. And looks like my son is drinking all my medium, full-bodied roasts, right, Laura? He's crushing. He loves that. And we just got our new mediums. And I like it for later in the day when you don't want a dark roast, right? Some of you I know what I'm talking about. It's just the only delicious K-Pod medium full-bodied roast, and it's incredible. It is. And there's a whole science behind it. They put the R&D into it. They were totally right, because I went and I put their little theory to the test, and I tested some, a lot of the other ones. They're crap. It's kind of a scam. It's like, what do these government regulators do? The FDA doesn't really, they take the drug company's word for things. They don't regulate. I'm not sure what the Food and Drug Administration does at all. Period. All right. Let's start with, where are you? Oh no. Where are you? I just had it. Or maybe it's because I put it into Yeah, it's the first, Laura. We're good. We don't have to. It's the first. Yep. There's one. Okay, that's the plea. I'm not looking for the plea first. I'm looking for the other one. Here we go. NBC News first. Then we'll go on to the New York Times. By the way, according to Russell Brand's news thing that it's really cool, actually. I showed it to you before. It'll tell you how people cover things, how you're covered personally. Ground news, is that what it's called? Like, for instance, when we showed about Trump. Yep. If you look at me, I'm pretty damn center, boy. And then I like that. And some of it is because they, what's it called, Laura? Scrape the show, and they can see what sources we often show on the show. So I don't, I don't always use left wing. I don't always use right wing. So yeah, that's good. I like that because I think that's a more accurate depiction of what I am and what I do. Anyway, let's read this. Give me 2 seconds. Went an hour and 7 minutes. That was pretty good. Pro Ron DeSantis Super PAC ends door knocking in Nevada and the Super Tuesday states. This was out yesterday. Never Back Down officials said they were reinvesting in the first 3 primary states and criticized what they see as a pro-Trump effort to tilt primary rules in his favor elsewhere. First of all, aside from how damning the story is about them basically, their vision that they gave to donors to have this nationwide ground effort is a failure. It's a 100% total failure. That's what this means. They told donors they needed all of this money that they raised and 80 plus million they transferred from when he was governor, and MAGA people were donating to him. This whole thing was not, oh, we're going to shut it down in September and then kick it back up before the primaries, folks, as we need it on an as needed basis. That is not the vision they sold. This is a major failure. And I told you, PACs cannot run campaigns. They just can't. Anyway, Never Back Down, the Super PAC backing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has ceased its door-knocking operations in Nevada, home to key early nominating contests in California, a delegate-rich Super Tuesday state, officials confirmed Wednesday. Well, that's because those of us who knew what the scummy little deal was in California exposed it, uncovered it, killed it in the crib, and now it's winner take all. And they know that Donald Trump is going to take all the delegates, so there's just no point. Nevada, I just want to skip forward a little bit. We don't need to get too much into everything else they're saying. The decision to fold its door-knocking operations in Nevada and some Super Tuesday states coincides with DeSantis' rough summer, which has featured him struggling to gain traction against the GOP frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, since launching his campaign in late May. In recent weeks, DeSantis' campaign has publicly promoted resets and staff shakeups as he seeks to generate momentum. I told you this wasn't like, oh, we're going to change it up and do something. They had to fire more than 2/3 of their staff because they're broke. They had to start doing small venues instead of the big venues that they originally, planned on doing because they're broke. And I told you it was a big red flag that they didn't know until June 30th they had money problems. It tells you that all of these consultants were eating like pigs from the trough, and they wouldn't give a damn about how much money they were blowing. They were sticking it in their pockets. June 30th is the filing deadline. This is gross negligence. And then they get an FEC letter basically demanding, and that deadline is coming up soon. They're demanding you need to let us know what you are referring to in this itemized expenditure. You spent too much on this. What the FEC is alleging is overbilling. That's what they're alleging. That's when the FEC suspects that the consultant is price gouging and putting money in their pockets and not really doing the work. And I think it's important when we're talking about this door knocking operation because, well, wait, I don't want to jump ahead. At its peak, it had more than 250 field staffers in 4 states. All right, let's go to Aaron Perrine's statement. Are you ready? We want to reinvest in the first 3. A spokesman for the Super PAC, Aaron Perrine, told NBC News, nodding to Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. We see real opportunities in the first 3. The first 3 are going to set the conditions for the March states. Aaron, Nevada is the 3. Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada
of the first 3. This is what I'm talking about. Amateur hour in this campaign and in this PAC. All they know how to do is run oppo on people and smear people. They don't know how to have a hopeful message. They don't know how to add up delegates. They don't even apparently know how to look at a delegate schedule. And then she tries to walk it back. Oh, I meant primaries. Iowa's not a primary. It's a caucus. Just admit you didn't know. South Carolina is on February 24th. Nevada is on February 6th. Just admit you did not know. And also admit that that is because they go on and on to say we're pulling out of Nevada. The real reason is that it's run by a bunch of Trumpers and it's a caucus state. And listen, the Democratic legislature and the governor before Lombardo won, they changed the state from a caucus to a primary. Republicans had been suing to move it back to a caucus. And they are saying that's because they're Trump supporters and they want a caucus format because he can win a caucus format. He can't win a primary. That's ass backward. A caucus format is going to result in lower turnout and more white turnout. That's the best chance DeSantis has. The problem for him, period, is the same problem Rubio had and Ted Cruz had. Donald Trump is extremely popular with, I just got something from my son. That sounds really cool. Donald Trump is extremely popular. We have to leave him there, Laura, after school. I just got to tell you that and interrupt the program. It's exciting. You'll love it. I'll wait to tell you, but just so you know, we are, he's got to stay there. He's got something from 3 to 5. So, all right. So, and in the event, Trump is extremely popular with Hispanics in Nevada who vote in Republican contests and period, by the way. In our polling leading up to 2022, he was outperforming Lombardo and Laxalt significantly among Hispanics. And if it was a primary, that is worse for Ron DeSantis because you're going to get more turnout, higher turnout, and more non-white turnout. So they have it totally backward. I'm telling you, it's amateur hour, and that is the reason, one of the main reasons this campaign is failing. And it's failed. It's a failed campaign, which you're going to see in a second. So, the initial judge denied Republicans. Now they're appealing to the state Supreme Court. Honestly, if you're Trump, I think personally you want a primary, but that's me. And then they go on to say that they're puppets of Trump. Okay, whatever. Moving on. I don't need to run. Chris Lasivita's statement is hilarious, but whatever. He refuses to refer to Never Back Down as Never Back Down. He refers to them as ABD instead of NBD, right? Which they call themselves. NBD, baby. He says ABD, always back down. So he said they're realizing what we've known all along and is borne out of every day in every poll. Donald Trump is the overwhelming pick of Republicans across the country to take on and defeat Joe Biden. No amount of charts and darts and fancy sales pitches pushed by ABD's long list of super PAC consultants will change that. All right, so let's move down here because I want to show you something else. Republicans involved in a canvassing have preached its usefulness in interviews with NBC News, while high-dollar donors have been willing to open their wallets to fund such efforts. But Link, as more than a dozen insiders with experience in GOP-aligned field operations, in addition to internal data obtained by NBC News, detailed earlier this year. We went over this article on this show. Those large-scale conservative canvassing efforts have been plagued with issues, including fraudulent and untrustworthy data entries that called into question just how useful the practice is. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, DeSantis is actually giving money to the same people who are being sued right now for that fraudulent data in Adam Laxalt's campaign. The same state, the same vendors, the same consultants, the same firm. I friggin' kid you not. It's mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. But it's true. Listen, before we go on, I'm going to play this thing real quick. I don't know what to make of this guy. I'll be honest with you. I just don't. Let's go to locals, and I will show you who I'm talking about. There is also, he went on Kimberly Guilfoyle. There is also another story that came out. The DeSantis campaign had tried to downplay what it was, basically saying this guy was a fraud, and they called it the scam PAC. Listen, this is what Team DeSantis does when they have a problem. Let me see if I can get this. Yep. This is what Team DeSantis does when they have a problem with someone stops supporting them. They attack them like that. That's how they roll. So I don't know what to make of John Thomas. He raised $15 million and was going to use it for television ads to help Ron DeSantis. But his donors basically dried up because they told him DeSantis failed on every account. I'm just going to play this because this was just another headline. I don't know what to make of him either. He used to support Trump. So DeSantis' people are saying that it was all a scam and it's a psyop, basically. I don't know, because I went back and found people touting John Thomas was once a Trump strategist and now he's supporting DeSantis. So they were happy to say that at the time and then started to call him Scam PAC when he started to express his concern with the failures in their campaigns. I don't know what the 100% truth is. You guys make up your own minds. I'm going to play this clip just to give you, because the contribution I think it's making here is that to the greater story is that it was one more headline the same day. There were two really bad other headlines, one of which I just read to you, the next of which I'm about to read to you. I'm not going to go over the article because I'm not going to even give that damn pay-per-click, but there's a synopsis of what was going on there, and posted it to locals, and we'll talk about that alone. But let me go ahead and play this. You tell me what you think. I'm gonna let you guys make up your own minds.
There have been misstep after misstep. I even called it rookie moves in the Daily Mail coming from the DeSantis group. First and foremost was a failure to launch when they chose Twitter. Look, I don't fault
what he just said, including rookie moves, and then what he's going to say about Twitter right now. It really kind of sounds like he watches Inside the Numbers.
DeSantis and his team for not knowing that Twitter would break. Who could have known that? But what I do fault is that launching a presidential campaign, every senior strategist knows that is your one moment nationally to utilize video and optics to captivate a nation.
Why take a chance on something that?
Yeah, okay. Kimberly, I'm just going to interrupt there. He is 100% correct. And some of the things I'm hearing him say make me think he is the real deal. He knows at least something about something, unlike some of these other idiots that were running or were involved in the DeSantis campaign. It's amateur hour at the DeSantis campaign. He just used the word rookie, which I've been using for weeks and weeks. It's a rookie mistake to overhype. Like an announcement. Wait till he announces. Wait till he campaigns. Wait till the debate. Wait till the hurricane. Wait till this. Wait till that. Wait till the contest. Wait till June. Wait till March. Wait till I don't know. You don't do that. You don't overpromise and underperform. That is a rookie mistake, and they've done it not once, not twice, but 3-4 times, and it's just unbelievable. I'm going to interrupt her by saying this, though, that he's right, that it's not their fault that Twitter broke, but it is the campaign's advisors, his manager, the whatever it may be, the different advisor capacities that these people are serving to protect your candidate. And you don't let them walk into a risky move like that without a backup. And their original thing was to have that launch in the Tampa area, the Tampa suburb. That's where he grew up, and that's what it was supposed to be, even though he hasn't been there for years. That's what he should have done. And then you could have done the Twitter space on top of it later that night, right? So they blew it. They totally blew it. It is your job to protect your candidate. You can't run Twitter right. You can't make sure Twitter's going to run right, but it is your job to protect your candidate. And they failed to protect their candidate. So everything he's saying here is 100% true, as well as if no other reason you want that traditional launch, you can be creative with it, but for no other reason to get on television, to get that airtime, to get Fox News to repeatedly run those clips, to get Fox News, to get even news that hate you to repeatedly run those clips. Exposure. That's the point.
Hasn't been proved, or that you don't know, and have, you know what I'm saying? It was too much of an experiment.
And Kimberly, you come from the world. This is a video show. You come from the world of cable news. Look, video is everything. And they didn't have any video component to share, to give to the television stations, to give to the influencers on the internet. And that alone was a significant misstep and showed me at that point, they've got a problem.
Yeah, I mean, we said that at the time too. That big and that bad of a mistake everything else, I mean, it was just foreshadowing, right, Laura? Is that what it's? Yeah, I'm writing using the right? Foreshadow. It was foreshadowing all the disasters to come. And, to rely on, what did they have? They had Laura Ingraham at 10 o'clock going, that was the most brilliant launch ever. Oh my God. I mean, you're kidding me, right? Like, most of the party doesn't even respect her anymore. And it doesn't matter. Like, Murdoch Inc. can't carry you. You needed to do that on your own. And by the way, think back to the genius punditry of Laura Ingraham and look at where we are now. What a flop. And she's not the only one. She's not the only one.
Number two, I haven't seen, and I still have yet to see, Kimberly, what exactly is Ron DeSantis's message?
The presidential justification. We've talked about this a million times. What is his justification? The COVID narrative is a lie. The woke stuff is not even relevant to it is relevant, but it is not even in the top three. What is his justification? That moment where the presidential candidate, even Hillary Clinton had one, Barack Obama certainly had one, Donald Trump certainly had one. This is why I am the man or the woman for this moment in time right now to lead this country. That is why you need me, nobody else. I mean, anyone who studies any form of political science in college knows this. Like, what on earth? Where did they get these people? You need a justification. And if it honestly was COVID, then you're bigger screw ups than I ever could have believed. You can't run a single poll to find out COVID's not even on people's radar.
It's what? That he's
never back down?
Trump.
I don't know.
I mean,
not to mention, it wasn't true. It is not true. His whole COVID justification isn't true. And then, nobody knows that better than me, my wife. We lived there. We know.
I'm not sure that he's Donald Trump like light. Well, the problem is,
you mean with no
if
balls?
you like Donald Trump's agenda, if you like his fighting spirit, why would you not go for Donald Trump? Why would you go for like a cheap knockoff when you could have the original thing? I have yet to see that articulate message. And then the last thing, Kimberly.
Well, you don't have Trump policies without Trump. Just that's it.
And that's true. And the last thing is, what we have seen from the Democrats, both at Joe Biden and his administration, we know who they fear the most. It's where they're activating all their attention and they're trying to stop the one guy who can beat him. And what that's done is it's totally backfired in the Republican primary. And it has reminded Republican voters of one of the main reasons they like Donald Trump in the first place. And that's because he has a spine of steel. Mm-hmm. And that he is the one that will dismantle the deep state, dismantle the bureaucratic state.
You don't need to listen. It's almost over anyway. But sounds like somebody listens to Inside the Numbers, doesn't it? I mean, God. Let me go back, though, and I just want to do this one more story with you, and then we'll go to Q&As and stuff like that. Yep, here it is, where I just said, I told you, folks, he's going broke. I mean, I told you. The DeSantis campaign is broke, basically, and now Never Back Down PAC is hitting the panic button. Jeff Rowe got rich and wants to milk the cow for all it's worth before the lights go out. DeSantis' financials in July, like I said, showed an unsustainable burn rate and a financial situation that was worse than Scott Walker. PACs cannot run campaigns, folks. Aside from legal conflicts, there are things a campaign must do separate from a PAC. The campaign not knowing it was going broke until the filing deadline was a huge red flag. Then came the FEC letter demanding explanations for expenditures and misfilings. The deadline is rapidly approaching. Now the PAC, which NBC News reported, I just told you, was pulling out of these states, is apparently hitting the panic button as well. Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman from the New York Times, and I'm not going to click on that damn thing, but Jeff Rowe knew he was being recorded with his knowledge. He told donors that he needs $50 million ASAP. He needs $5 million a month to sustain the operation in Iowa. He has 60 days to beat Donald Trump. Placing bets now, hoping that donors cover later. Oh my God. And Nikki Haley is, quote, not actually a lovely person. I mean, it's just cheap shot nonsense, but at least Nikki Haley isn't pretending to be somebody she isn't. I mean, you have to give it to Nikki Haley, which is why she is pulling some support from Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis' drop in support went 70% to Trump, I would say, and maybe like 10% to, Nikki Haley and Vivek, and, it's being split between Vivek, Nikki Haley, and other candidates. Nikki is definitely, I would say, post-debate, getting some of that because of the media's hype over it. She'll probably drop again. But I think why the main reason isn't the debate performance, it's an affirmation of what I just said. She wasn't pretending to be somebody she wasn't. Mike Pence just came across as a you-know-what hole. She just came across as somebody that said, look, this is what I believe. You may or may not agree with me, but this is who I am. I want to start World War III. I'm a neocon. I don't want... I do want to slash Social Security and Medicaid. I would never put tariffs on the table for a trade negotiation. I want to go back to free trade. She's not where the party is, but at least she's being real. So last few weeks, it was attack Vivek. Now it's attack Nikki Haley. They're writing checks that they can't cover. And in fact, what the filing showed is that they were doing that already. It's a cheap trick. Everyone does it. Not to pay their bills before the filing because you want to keep that cash on hand. You want it to look like you have more money than you have. But we were told by several sources, and it's true. It turned out to be 100% true. You can validate it, and they verify it now, that they were not paying their bills at like higher than normal rates in order to make it look like they had a better financial situation than they did. So now Jeff Rowe is basically asking donors for a Hail Mary, $50 million up front, $5 a month to keep Iowa going. And by the way, I'm going to write checks that I know I can't cash, and I'm hoping you're going to cover me on the back end. All of this, folks, all of this to overturn the will of the majority. All of it. This is not about, well, that's a pro-Trump comment, Rich, or an anti-DeSantis comment. This is about strategy. In our poll in Florida, among those people who are not registered, screened out, among those people who are registered, not likely to vote, the support for Trump is even higher than among likely voters. Republicans have a lot of work to do. All they have to do to not only win this election, but frankly, they have the opportunity to run away with this election. All they have to do is consolidate and get behind Donald Trump. That's a simple statement, but it's so true. All they have to do is unite behind Donald Trump. And they're going to get the coalition they claim they always wanted. They're going to beat Joe Biden. They're going to beat Democrats. But they have to unite behind the guy who has the best chance to do it, who has the opportunity to win votes they can't win. And frankly, when we talk about these operations, people keep telling me, hey, lay out a plan to do this, lay out that, to go register these people, to go find the difference between the consumer file and the voter file that, is 85, 90% likely to cast a vote for Donald Trump or Republicans, if you can get them registered and get them to vote. And then that's a separate group from the low propensity voter that should be getting put on the absentee ballot list, a permanent mail-in ballot list, because otherwise you're leaving that giant pool of mail-in ballots sitting there inactive for Democrats to just do what they want with. It's like old-fashioned ballot stuffing, just in a new way with new technology. You're leaving that giant pool on the table for them to do that. Those people should be on the permanent mail-in ballot list so that they get their ballots and they get them in. And it's easy, simple, and non-evasive, whatever you want to call it. Takes 2 seconds of your time. You're not asking somebody to go and stand on a line for 6 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours, an hour, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. You're asking them to take 2 minutes out of their day to fill an envelope and mail it back. That's it. But here's the deal. With both of those groups, the low propensity and the new voter, the one who has the best chance to excite them to do that, to make any infrastructure building operation, to make any registration operation more successful, is Donald Trump. These voters support Trump at much higher rates than they support everybody else. I think DeSantis was ahead with that non-registered group by like 2 points, something like that. in the premise data poll, Trump was ahead by 16. Sorry, 16. Those low propensity votes, they don't come out for Republicans. How many more cycles do we have to have before that becomes painfully clear to people? But they're too stupid. And they're too ambitious. There's too many people who are individually ambitious to do that. And that's going to hurt them because, it's very, the simple old adage, a house divided cannot stand. That's number one. And number two, Democrats aren't like this. They're not like that. They don't do that. They don't do things like this. Actually, I'm gonna play another clip here before we we go back to because I'm seeing the questions. I think we got it for half an hour. It's 1:31. I'm gonna play a clip. I was waiting to come in to this show when he said this, and I remember telling Laura he doesn't even have to have me on anymore. He just explained how Florida got to be like this in our latest poll. He just explained the national poll that came out last week. We did. I mean, he did it in 45 seconds. Now, there's a lot more to it. But when I was waiting to go on Sean Parnell's show, he said something that was just very simple and very basic, but it explains so much. Here it is.
The only reason they're doing this is because Trump at this point is clear. He's unstoppable in the primary. The only hope for anybody else in this race is that he gets put in jail. And by the way, if you're running for president and you're a Republican and your entire freaking strategy is to wait for the top guy to get put in jail, you're part of the problem. Get the hell out of the race. Support the guy that support us for 4 years. Hell, half of these people that are running wouldn't even have their platform or half their social media following if it wasn't for President Trump, the very person whose life they're trying to destroy and put in jail. Could the Republican Party just have a soul? Can our party just be loyal?
There it is. And there it is. It's really that simple. Let's get to some questions. Getter. I'm going to say Kentucky instead of KY. Is that cool with you? Kentucky VFR 1200F. Any current polls on trust of current leadership with Republican voters? We haven't done it currently, but we do have a congressional leader favorability index that we do. I don't think I have it handy. Do I have it handy? Look, there was a point when Kevin McCarthy, just after he became speaker, did have a bump in favorability. There's no doubt about it. Although we never had him positive like some others have him. And I will say this. There is most definitely a deficit with trust in Republican leadership versus, the juxtaposition to how Democrats feel about their leaders is it's significant. Democrats rally behind their leaders. They always did, even Nancy Pelosi. Her high unfavorabilities came from Republicans and independents hating her guts, but not Democrats. Chuck Schumer, same thing. He routinely comes in. He's negative, but he's among the most narrow negative. Hakeem, we don't have enough data for right now. The first time we did Hakeem, I think we did him twice so far. He's negative, but he's not very negative. It's because so many people didn't know who he was. We'll see how, next time, whether that changes. I didn't put it in there, this poll. It was our first. I'll put it in the national poll again because it should be in there. It's just that it was on our first poll that we had done since Cint acquired Lucid. And I didn't want to get a crazy survey that could go haywire. And I wanted a very simple survey to be the first one we fielded. For the online component of it anyway. So it's a good thing I did because there was, of course, growing pains, but we made it work. So I'll make sure that happens again, but I can tell you right away, I already know. I mean, look at what happened with McConnell again. He had another friggin' glitch. But even if McConnell wasn't turning into a brain dead potato, no offense, I don't really give a damn about his feelings or his family's feelings. Our country is going to hell in a handbasket. He shouldn't be in Washington, D.C. anymore. He's a friggin' crook anyway. He's done. And it happened at the Chamber of Commerce event, which to me was super appropriate because the Chamber of Commerce would love nothing more than an empty-brained vegetable as the Republican leader in the Senate. Trump announced almost 10 months ago, where is Sarah Sanders' endorsement? He's the one that encouraged her to run. After she announced her resignation, he brought her up on stage at a rally, and she was in tears, thanking him and everyone. Sundance implied she's an RGA pawn based on her State of the Union response when she purposely didn't mention Trump, but talking points about his admin's accomplishments. I don't know. I can't speak for her. It is a good point. Her father has been very vocal. He also endorsed her, don't forget. That race was a total blowout because Donald Trump endorsed her. That's a good question. Question for Rich. But let me just say that everyone in the Republican Party should be universally condemning what is happening to Donald Trump. And that is the only way they can save themselves, is to rally behind him and fight tooth and nail. Kevin McCarthy's going to watch. He's going to roll over like a bitch. Watch on this thing. You watch, folks. You watch. If it was Nancy Pelosi and the roles were reversed, Weiss, Smith, all would be defunded. They'd be brought up on probably charges for failing to appear to a subpoena for congressional subpoenas. They'd be referred to the DOJ, their own placed for prosecution. If it was Georgia and the roles were reversed, Brian Kemp is a crook. I shared a story with you guys in locals. Everybody needs to be on the same page here. This is a Stalinistic-like persecution. And you can't stand against it fractured. You can't. But it's a really good point. So, question for Rich, could the impeachment of Paxton backfire? Yes. I keep hearing the Texas Senate won't convict. If it plays out that Paxton keeps his job, he just needs to start rolling out indictments, right? He needs to make the left's lawfare look like a high school mock trial. Don't you find it funny, Red Diver, that they just so happen, and by the way, a lot of DeSantis allies, they just so happen to impeach Ken Paxton, the only attorney general who's willing to fight lawfare with lawfare? Don't you find that funny? And it turns out they didn't even have any new evidence. They didn't have any evidence, not of a bribe. They just said everything they said is a lie. Nothing's new. Remember that? I remember book club, one of my book club guys and local supporters who lives in Texas. He had said, look, there's some people who voted for impeachment. They're saying that there is something new. And, I kind of trust their opinions. And I told him, because I didn't want to insult him, because if he was friends and knew some of these lawmakers, I didn't want to insult him. But I was trying very nicely to explain to him, be prepared for there to be absolutely nothing. This is an effort by the Uniparty and DeSantis allies, because there are allies that were, behind this, to knock out the most effective Republican attorney general in the country. There's just, that is, what else was it? Since now we know that there is absolutely no evidence, no new evidence, no evidence of a bribe, nothing. The Lyft or Uber or something. He had a secret Uber account. Oh my God, the horror. It absolutely could backfire. Paxton just won election in Texas with all of these allegations on the table, out in the open, overwhelmingly. He won the primary. He was forced to a runoff because, again, the Louis Gohmerts and, I'm sure Gohmert's done a lot of good things for Republicans in his career, but this Messiah complex that Laura keeps talking about, this personal ambition that Republicans have that gets in the way of being unified and gets in the way of making sure that the party is unified enough to be an effective countervailing force against Democrats. And Louis Gohmert's a perfect example of that. Louis, we all know why you really ran. Well, maybe the voters don't. We all know what you were doing. That was your own personal interest. You didn't really think Ken Paxton was a crook. You didn't really think the voters of Texas would believe it. He overwhelmingly won re-election. He just did. And by the way, there's a rule about this. John O'Shea was running against Kay Granger, good friend. He wrote a great op-ed. There was just another one that came out not long ago. He's been writing op-eds like crazy. Get the hell with the laws. That rule about an election, the whole impeachment is lawless. There are rules and laws in the books about this. Let's see. YouTube C509. Do you think WOW counties keep bleeding support in Wisconsin because there aren't as many Trump convertible voters in those suburbs? Wisconsin is mostly stagnant population-wise besides Dane. I do think what I think is happening, the white population is getting more educated. So that's going to hurt Republicans no matter who it is. And because I think you're absolutely right. I think because there aren't as many other convertible Trump voters, they are bleeding little by little. That being said, Trump and Johnson still do really well in certain counties that matter. Kenosha, Racine, but particularly Kenosha. You cannot come under 3 points as a Republican in Kenosha and win statewide. It's just going to indicate you're going to do worse than you expect in Sauk and Waukesha and even around, Brown, So even if you don't get killed in lumberjack country, you could technically, win. You could, but you'd have to have some really significant realignments. You got to take Dorr. You can't lose by 40 votes. Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. I do. Because you're right. There has not been. And the entire Midwest is having that problem, by the way. Stagnant to declining population. And a lot of the uneducated or uncredentialed, let's say non or uncredentialed, they've left a lot of those Midwest states. And the number one destination is states like Nevada, Florida, Arizona, Texas. Yeah. Does Trump need to hold his nose with Kemp to put Georgia out of fraud margin, or is he strong enough in 24 to do it without Kemp's team? I think he's strong enough to do it without him. I do. Although I do think you're going to need Charlie Kirk. You're going to need other operations. Charlie Kirk is putting in $5 million in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin. I can't speak to the quality of it. I was going to go on today for a little bit, but I do need to talk to Charlie Kirk and get a sense of it for you guys about what they intend to do. What data did they intend to use as a baseline? Because look, it doesn't matter what app you build to make it easy for this. If the data source is not good, it's just like an election model, shit in, shit out. Okay. Aggregate polls, shit in, shit out. So, we'll have to see, but I'm telling you, the numbers are in Georgia for him he doesn't need Brian Kemp. Has Rich looked into how the Trump indictments are playing with the black community? Listen, Sandy, I've been vocal about this. I think they're making Donald Trump relatable to younger black men specifically. And when I say younger, I mean like 45 and below, because the older you get in the black community, the stronger the ties are to the Democratic Party. And you have some of these, I'm just going to say it. You have some of these so-called black big con conservatives who think they speak for the black community, like doubting that this will help Trump. They don't know anything about the black community. I hate to say, oh my God, it's a white guy saying it. I'm right. Okay. Listen, there are people like me. Again, I said it about Barack Obama. I got more hours in an American ghetto than Barack Obama. Well, that's true, number one. And since it is true, it means I have certainly more, hours than conservative black pundits who live in suburbs and have their entire lives. They don't know about street cred. All right. I think it's really, you know what? Let me see something here. To answer that, I think I can play a video. It's not long. But I think you have to ask yourselves, why have Black conservatives not been particularly successful at bringing over Black voters? Why did it take a billionaire rich guy to raise the share of the Black vote among Republicans from, let's say, what was it, Laura and Mitt Romney, 4%, something like that, to 8%? And then to take that 6 to 8 to 8 to 12. And now appear to be taking that 8 to 12 to 16 to 20. Well, I think the answer lies in something that entitled Black conservatives really know nothing about. And that is the oppression, the true oppression of the system that these people feel that nobody else feels. And when you get locked up in Fulton County Jail, that you get a certain street cred that Joe Biden is never going to get. Ever. Right. Ever. And I'm trying to find something. I'm not seeing it, I guess. Which one here? Ooh. You know what? He says it well. This is bad language. All right. So bear with me. He does use foul language, but it actually isn't the one that I was hoping for. But then I'm going to tell you about a fight in the Twitter feed that kind of answers some of this if people don't understand what I'm talking about, okay? People are like, oh, I know. Yeah, it's going to be dirty. All right. I'm not going to play the 4-minute one. Listen to this.
When you come to the public square with that milk toast soft ass shit in a time of war, you're no get the fuck out of my way. You see, that's me coming through. Get the fuck out of here. Because when you're at war and bullets are flying, I don't have time to come and coddle you. I'm not going to kill you if I can help it, right? If I can help it, I'm not going to kill you. I don't want to hurt you, but you're definitely get the fuck out of my way. You dumb motherfucker, you're going to get us killed. And it's a real diagnosis of the American mindset, even on the conservative side, that we still find time to bitch and moan about things like profanity, but the Federal Reserve is going to turn you into a serf. They already have.
All right. So before I leave and get out of here, so this Ben Shapiro aligned Black conservative gets on there and starts attacking him. And he's like, look, Trump's not going to get any more of the Black vote because of this. And he had gone on to say that the Black, basically Black community feels like they're already in this war and that Trump has just joined their ranks. And now he's going to be the standard bearer for some of these people. And this idiot chimes in and, just shows that he knows nothing about their experience, despite the color of his skin. And he goes on in the thread to call him a kid. And he says, kid, I will slap the right off of your face. I'm not going to repeat it, And then underneath he's like, see, you're just immature. You're this, you're that. It tells you everything you need to know. These people feel like they're in a war. You don't go to their neighborhood and call a grown-ass man a kid without having to put your hands up and defend yourself. You call a grown-ass man a kid in his neighborhood, and you're going to get your teeth knocked down your throat. You don't get to hide behind some false claim of maturity after you call another grown man a kid. You're not mature. You just immaturely called someone who's a grown man a kid because you're a coward hiding behind a keyboard. They don't have that luxury. And then, of course, there's Harrison Floyd, who went on to say, and Bannon said, and that's what I was looking for. Bannon asked Harrison Floyd, and let me see if I can find it, because Harrison's going to put, I don't want to have to, I'm a white man, and I am self-aware enough to know that I don't want to try to speak for these guys. I know only because of my own life experience. I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had to navigate bad neighborhoods. I had to navigate, Hispanic ghettos, Black ghettos. That was where I came from. I did not come from the world that so many of these other people have come from. And, you know, what basically Harrison Floyd says, because I'm having trouble finding the clip, is that now he knows what time it is, and they know he knows what time it is. It gives him a level of credibility. He's been locked up in Fulton County Jail. You know, I mean, he knows now the true nature and the true face of the system. All right. I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough. And again, it certainly would come out better, you know, from them if I could. Oh, hey, Grace, thanks for saying, because I'm looking on Grace's feed too. I thought she had it up. Thank you for sharing the show, Grace. Grace works for Steve Bannon. And some idiot trolling her is like, at least I don't just sit around tweeting stuff about Bannon all day. And she's like, idiot, did you read my profile? That's my job. I guess I'm a stupid fool. Like, yeah, Laura's laughing hysterically in the room. She's like, it's my job to tweet Steve's clips all day. That's what I was hired to do. Like, what is wrong with you? Yeah, I get paid for it. What's your excuse? What are you doing trolling people and, you know, with your fake profile all day? What's your excuse? Last place I'm thinking a look, and I'm seeing John McLaughlin interview, and I thought it was right before John McLaughlin's interview. It must have been somebody else who put it up. Man, I wish I had this. Ooh, is this it? This is how many, but that's what was yesterday was August 31st, wasn't it? This is a long clip, though. It's 2 minutes. It may not even have it, and I'm worried it doesn't have it, and then I shared the wrong clip. Let me see. One more check, and then I got to get back to the one more thing, and then I got to get back to it. Oh my God. Loomer just texted me her thing about this guy who is the auditor for the National Young Republicans, which put out that poll. Apparently it's filled. So now I'm to believe. Okay. For me, Laura, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. That was an intentionally faked poll. That so-called straw poll showing DeSantis barely ahead of Trump but ahead. Now, after I'm seeing what Laura just texted me, because I couldn't understand why they were continuing to go on after what I was telling them is very clearly, it's again, not an argument about methodology. You conducted a tainted poll. You the credibility of your poll, the integrity of your poll is shot to hell. And yet still people like Pedro Gonzalez and the fake Twitter accounts that, you know, prop up DeSantis were just going on. And I couldn't understand, like, just take the L, dude. Take the L. You lost. It's embarrassing. As an organization, they should have immediately come out and said, you know, we messed up here. We're going to take down this poll, and that's unfortunate, and we hope to do better in the future. They didn't. They were silent for hours while they just continued to push it. And they tried to get people in the media who, by the way, contacted me because they saw the back and forth. They were like, is this credible? Should I cover this? I'm like, this is not whether they, I'm not talking about whether they did it intentional or not. It's not a credibly conducted poll. So they didn't. They're not covering it. Now Laura just sent me this, and this tells me now I'm leaning toward this was intentional. All right, so let me play Harrison Floyd's interview with Bannon for 2 minutes, and I think it is in here.
Were you singled out? I mean, this is a tough question, but would you think you were singled out because you're an African-American male and they were trying to set an example with you? Is that why you stayed in jail for so many days when everybody else could walk in and do their bond? And I mean, first off, it should have just been recognizant. They should just let all these folks go. But do you think that you were personally singled out by Fani Willis and others to set an example?
Oh, absolutely. She wanted to send a message to Black folks. You know, there's a huge trend amongst African-American men leaning towards President Trump and looking more into conservatism. And, you know, they definitely don't want that. When I went in, the DA's office pulled me aside. They said they wanted to talk about bond. I thought that's when it was going to happen. I said, sure, I'd be happy to talk about it. But I wanted a lawyer present. Then they shut everything down. They put me in front of a judge who said I was a flight risk, which I don't know how that is because President Trump literally flew away. I'm no different than anybody else. President Trump has more, felonies and more jurisdictions. It just didn't make any sense. And also, she increased my bond. Originally, it was supposed to be $50,000. She increased it to $100,000. So I definitely think she was trying to make an example.
Talk to me about this trend. Is this just we're hearing anecdotally, or do you feel there's something really happening here, like a tectonic plate shift with African American men?
I think I got it. I think this is it.
There is a seismic shift. This is going to be the election that's really going to decide the future of our country. If these GOP candidates could be able to speak to African American men the way President Trump could, I mean, it could do. We wouldn't see, I think, a blue Congress for the next 40 years. But they're just not reaching out. They're not doing it. They're too afraid to do it. But President Trump isn't, and we weren't. And that's why I personally feel like I was also singled out. I led Black Voices for Trump, and we raised the minority vote, our coalition's team, more minority votes for any president since Republican president since 1960. So I thought it was a misstep on her part, putting the black guy who raised the black vote for the president in a black jail, but it's all good.
I mean, that's a good point. It's not exactly the one that I was looking for, but that was a good point. Again, though, he says, like Bannon says, can you break down what it is that is doing this? Like, what is it about President Trump that's causing that? What is it about him that they like? And man, I guess I really can't find it. It's like another 20 seconds of his answer. And that's when he really relays, very much more in detail that it's about credibility. It's an issue of credibility, and it's an issue about relatability. So now they know that he knows what it's like to be in their in their crosshairs, to be in their world, to be in their experience. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. He is wearing that green. We need some accountability. That may be it. It may be in that video. I don't want to take up too much time. I just think it's super, super important. And that's why I wanted to go. That's why I wanted to find it. But man, who can win Senate in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania? Does Parnell have a chance if he would run? Craig is a kind of like very like he's got no flair in Michigan, but he did just endorse Trump. He's trying to get that endorsement, and that basically, I think with Trump on the ballot, he may be able to. Hold on, let me just tell Laura's call. I don't think you realize I'm on the show. We'll call you back. We'll call you back. I think he may be able to drag Craig across the finish line in Michigan, but there's a recruiting gap in Michigan. I love Sean Parnell, and you know what? I think that I absolutely will talk to him. But I know he puts his family first. Look what they did to the poor man. It was not right. In Wisconsin, maybe Clayfish screwed up. She screwed up. But you may be able to bring back Michael. He didn't do a bad job. He didn't. He didn't have any help from the RGA. And again, with Trump on the ballot, it does change the equation of everything. It certainly does. You get Johnson out there to help him. Trump's going to be rallying in Wisconsin. I think Tim could probably win that seat. It's going to be tough, but I think he probably could. Michigan, again, like someone like Craig is not distasteful. And again, what we're just talking about, having minority candidates is a good minority America first candidates. Best thing the Republican Party could do for their image and brand right now. I'm telling you, the hell with these, the hell with these rich, entitled white traitors. The hell with them. Trade them for populations that are actually growing. And in the future, will be a deciding factor, a real deciding factor in elections. Get rid of them. They're voting Democrat now anyway. They're just lying about it. You think Brian Kemp voted for Donald Trump? He did not. I don't care what he says. If I got Brian Kemp's ballot, I guarantee you
he voted for Joe Biden. They are liars. These people are two-faced. Sean Parnell is the strongest Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. Dave McCormick is going to run again. We know that. Oz could have won that election. He could have. He didn't have the infrastructure, and he got buried in early vote. However, I just think that he went through the brutal process, and he's not going to have excitement behind him now. After that, I wish Sean would run again for his sake. I feel like he's a good guy. He deserves to be able to run for office in a country that he served so faithfully. I know what Sean did. I was Army. I know what he did. I know the sacrifices he made. I know the shit he's seen. It is not okay for some, once again, entitled white sweater vest wearing Republican to do that to him. Who the hell do these people think they are? What the hell have they ever contributed to this country? Not their blood, not their friends, not their family. They haven't sacrificed any of that. Very uncomfortable with the prospect of using family court to intimidate people out of races. What's your thoughts on Florida trying to remove Trump from the ballot? Well, it's a loyalty pledge. My thoughts are very simple. Florida is not as supportive of Ron DeSantis as people think. There are many of the people who support him, as the Political article we read a couple weeks ago stated. They're right. Or what was it? The Washington Post. They're more afraid of retribution and retaliation from a sitting governor. So, if I was Trump, I'd just lie. I would lie. And they're not going to be able to remove him anyway. Let's be honest. Can somebody please tell me how much Donald Trump is leading their own governor in his own state? For a recap, he is leading him 57-18 if we round up. 57-18. He's got a 39-point lead. I'm going to take him off the ballot, then give the state to Democrats, you stupid idiots. Give it to Democrats. Knock yourself out. When a fool calls you a fool, consider it a compliment. Has VPN tech affected online polling? Yes, Norm. And there's a way around it, which I don't want to go on and on about it, but yes. So you can't simply use, this is what I was saying about what they did. And now just to show you what Loomer is reporting, I'm going to bring it up. Where's your article, Laura? Exposed, Loomered. You have to, and at first I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but from what Laura Loomer is finding right now, this is not good. All right. If you want me to show you guys, I will. But you need to prevent duplicate responses. You need to prevent forwarding in a survey like this that you're trying to, that's the way to conduct it. Let me just make sure there's nothing personal that's going to be shown. No. Okay. So, but this may be different, Norm. It may not be a case of IP using. So normally you would be able to use an IP. Now there are other ways to do it for VPN. And they'll probably find a way to get around that as well. It does affect it. We constantly have to evolve. Absolutely. Exposed, meet Mr. TJ Turner. He is the auditor for the National Young Republicans, which has been co-opted by Never Trumpers, Rhinos, and BLM sympathizers. Thomas Turner wants you to believe that the recent Young Republicans national poll that shows DeSantis beating Trump is legit. But let's take a look at who Thomas is. Thomas and many of the other board members of the National Young Republicans are anti-Trump mouthpieces for the Republican establishment. Turner, the auditor for the National Young Republicans, has one subscription on Twitter. Guess who? None other than Republicans Against Trump. See, this is unfortunate now because you can have your own views and oppose Donald Trump, but once you are made aware that a poll that you are pushing has been compromised, the integrity of it is not only in doubt, it has no integrity, then it was your job to speak up and do something about it. And this is why they were silent. Look, guys, I am a cynic in politics, and I don't believe, Norm, that they just accidentally forgot to block cookies and block IPs and do all these various things. I don't think they turned off forwarding and stuff like that. This was a scammed poll. So they sent it to all of their own friends and even still could barely get DeSantis ahead
of Donald Trump. Just so you guys see what it was 36.6 to 35.4. So they scammed and spammed this poll and still couldn't get DeSantis in a sizable or comfortable lead. Or worse, they wanted it to look somewhat believable, so they kept it close and lied about it. They put the poll out before the survey was closed. You know how I say we do data appends and we add them later? The survey is closed. Only people who started within the duration are allowed to finish, but we're only talking about a few people here. That survey was open and still being forwarded, and I was able to see many people using Twitter to access it. That's not legit. That's not legitimate poll. You cannot do that. And I can show you what I'm talking about. I don't have Alchemar up right now, but it simply asks, what are the dates that you're doing the survey? Online will close on its own if you set the parameter, which we always do. And then the phone survey software will close on its own. And if people are still, because we give the ability to save and continue in some modes, as you guys know. But once I close it on Alchemar's end, the only people who are allowed to finish are people who have partially completed it and come back within a certain amount of time, the allotted amount of time. That's not what happened here. What happened here is, unfortunately, I think this was an intentionally jerry-rigged poll, and that this pisses me off. So far this year, the only one abusing polling isn't Democrats. It's the DeSantis campaign and DeSantis supporters. They are the only ones abusing polling that I have been able to see so far. Not the media, not universities, not corporations, not other campaigns. Trump's polls haven't been out of the way out of the consensus. The only ones who have been WPA Intel, although less so than Public Opinion Strategies. And now we got the scam with this straw poll. I take a personal offense to this shit. I literally spent my career attacking the left for abusing polling. I would be an utter hypocrite if I didn't attack the right for doing the same when I see it. And that's what I see. This is a travesty. Is DeSantis going to keep the charade going? Listen, they're calling the rumors fake news, but I did myself hear the rumors that were reported in National Pulse, which is pro-Trump, and other places, though, that he was thinking about dropping out and running for Senate. I heard the rumor myself, and you know what I said to somebody I know who's in Trump world, but I was like, yo, you should talk to Don Jr. and get him to run for Senate, because I think he'd smoke Ron DeSantis in a primary. He'd just smoke him. We should poll that. We should totally poll that. Oh, let's do it. We're going to poll it. Don Jr. versus Ron DeSantis in a Republican primary for U.S. Senate. I bet you Jr. smokes his ass. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. You know me. I'll tell you one way or the other. But I bet you, Laura. I bet you. All right. So we have heard for years America's long-term future is decided by the next election. Oh, wait. I missed something. Anyway, I've heard that rumor. They called it fake news. Let me just wrap this up with a bow. I was told by donors that they were told he is staying in no matter what, even if it loses Florida, because of the effort to remove Trump from the ballot and to unbind electors potentially. So he wants to have the second highest number of delegates. So if and when something succeeds to remove Donald Trump, he will be the number 2 guy, the runner-up guy. And they'll make the case you have to vote for him or else Trump's going to stay in jail for the rest of his life. I actually believe that more than I believe he's going to run for Senate. But maybe not. He's clearly a very ambitious guy. The problem is he doesn't work well with others. In the House, he was not people didn't like him. People didn't like Ron DeSantis in the House. Didn't like him. He doesn't play well with others. Being the vice president wasn't good enough for this guy. You think he wants to go back to a legislative chamber? A lawmaking body? With 99 other people? I don't. But I think he's ambitious. And if he felt like that's all he's got left, that's what he'll do. We have heard for years about America's long-term future is decided by the next election, but it feels like this election really is that moment. What does society look like if Trump loses? Garrett, if Trump loses, they will have, they will have concluded that we don't really need elections anymore. I'm not being hyperbolic. They'll have a charade for a while. where only state-approved candidates get to be in the contests. Everyone else will be attacked by lawfare. Their supporters will be thrown in jail. They'll be audited by the IRS. All sorts of stuff. All sorts of stuff. It will not be. You think, I've talked about hologram capitalism, which I talked about in my book. I also, and never did get a chance to follow it up, but I've also for a long time discussed hologram self-governance. And that's what it would be. It's the end. It's the end, Garrett. I'm not lying. It's the end. It's over. Because they've already determined that they have concluded they can launch administrative coups against presidents that the sovereign voter elects that they don't agree with. And they can get away with it. So they'll continue to do that as long as they can, because they got away with it. Durham, nothing happened. DC is such a corrupt court system, like I told you, what we talked about in the beginning of the show, that Durham couldn't have prosecuted people if he wanted to, and he knows it. And that's what he basically said in page 130 or something, if I remember correctly. Have I heard about Brandon Herrera running for Texas 23 seat? No, not yet. YouTube. I'm a locals member, but inconsistent reviewing poll questions. Is a percentage of Donald Trump's voters still hesitant to claim? So with friends, fam, etc. Yes. Actually think we need to put the social bias indicators back in the surveys, even though there are people who are big and bold right now. I strongly suspect that his lead is bigger than the 1 point whatever we found in the national poll last week. I think that it's indisputable. I don't know if another pollster is worth their weight who would argue with what I'm about to say right now. We are at great risk of a social desirability bias. The man has been arrested and charged with 4 different cases with felonies, including things that carry the death penalty. His supporters have been arrested. Not just his supporters, but elderly people have been arrested. There is no doubt that we are at risk of a social and response bias. So I do think there's not much we can do about response bias when it comes to the questions. That comes down to methodology, and we hope we do the best we can. But with the social bias, we can, because we can look at those undecideds or I won't vote, and we can see whether they're being truly comfortable and truly honest with us. I think I was just talking to Laura about this, that we're now, tragically, I thought it was getting better, and because of what they're doing, I think we're now potentially at risk of a shy Trump vote more than ever. But my intuition is that the TDS vote was tapped out in 2020. I do too. And this indictment nonsense is just pushing the indies and minorities over to Trump. I agree, Patrick. I agree. It's not only that I agree, it's what I'm seeing. I remember what 2020 looked like in the polling for Trump in a lot of places. It was ugly as hell. In nowhere now would I say it looks bad. It looks good everywhere for him. Have you read The End of Work? I have, I think. It's a 90s book, but truth is just, it is just as true today. Take a look. Yeah, I do. Yes. It's been so long though. I would have to read up on it. I may have it actually. I'd have to go through some boxes, but if it's what I'm thinking you're talking about, it's fantastic. Folks, it is what I'm thinking. And it's a good book and a solid book choice. It's cool. Will you be doing any polling in swing congressional districts? Yeah, just not now, but yeah. Local, you mean for the presidential race? Well, a lot of times we have district level results. We just don't put them out because the sampling's so small if we're doing state level polling. But if you meant that, then yeah, I liked what we did in 2016, where we picked a bunch of districts that were crazy, ran through different areas. Like in Pennsylvania, they ran through Lackawanna and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool. And I'd like to do that again if possible. But as far as congressional candidates, that wouldn't be until later, and probably would throw them on with another poll we're running. I'm also born in New York City and grew up in New Jersey, like you. I make a very decent salary, job based in New York City, and can barely afford to live my same lifestyle, and I cannot save to own anything. I am also a gay Trump supporter. It's a tough life. Is there anywhere you would suggest I move? I love New York City, but between COVID and the migrant crisis, it's just not the same city. Yeah, I totally hear you. And I was just going to suggest to you like Red Bank or something like that, especially if you're a gay Trump supporter. There's a lot of open minds there. But I would just get the hell out of the Northeast, Weege. I really would. Don't be afraid of the South. They are not what, right, Laura? Please jump in and help me out here. They are not what the left says. I have plenty of family and friends who are gay, who are conservative. They get along in Florida, no problem. They get along in North Carolina, no problem. Right, Laura? I mean, where we are in North Carolina, really, there's tons of gay conservatives here. Tons of them.
I mean, Gainesville, Florida, they even have the full-on parade in Gainesville. So
which is more
honestly,
liberal, though.
The South isn't homophobic.
He's conservative, though. He's conservative, so it's more liberal. If your job is somewhere,
it is more liberal. But hey, I'd rather him in Gainesville so we could get another red vote. You know what I'm talking about? I'm strategizing.
Yeah. And if you can take your job,
no, the South isn't like that. I mean,
it's
you
not
would
at
have
all
to
what
go
they
to
say.
like those really crazy parts of the South where it's like, you know,
I don't even think it exists anymore. I really don't think it even exists anymore.
It's just not like that anymore. It's just stigmatized because being up north, that's what we heard when, you know, we were young and growing up in New York and New Jersey, that, you know, the South is very racist and whatnot. And it's not. It's normal. Actually,
yeah.
I'd beg to say that the North stigmatizes race and
Worse than
sexual
anybody.
preference up north more than it does down south.
Worse than anybody, right? And if it's a place to where you could take your job with you, then hell, we found a cute little corner of the world. You'd probably love Morehead City. It's just not what people, and that's in North Carolina. It's just not what people say it is. It's just not. Hell, the Gulf Coast of Florida, if you could take your job with you, the Gulf is awesome. It's just like you're like me. You were born and raised like me. After 10, 15 years, 15 was the end for me. I love Florida, and I'll always be Floridian, and I'll always be in Florida. I can't have my kids live there all year round. I just can't. It's not changing seasons. You know, I was bringing up Evetts one day, right? You need, like, I went out my door this morning in the morning and I felt like that cool, brisk air. I was born in October. I need changing seasons. I need color. And I love Florida, but I just can't do it all the time. So just keep that in mind. Just to steel man the other side, what numbers are folks like Kurt Schlichter seeing to lead them and believe DeSantis is the only one who could win? They don't see any numbers. They don't. They're cherry picking. Kurt's cherry picking whatever polls he wants that makes him feel better. But we all know that they are very far and few between at this point. And you cannot argue with the Trump or bust. It's not even a theory. It's real. You cannot argue with it anymore. He's going off of the very, I'm sorry, Kurt, but it is establishment mindset that, you know, this is going to hurt Trump, the whole suburban woman thing. He's, you know, Kurt, get your ass in a suburb in a battleground state and go to a Starbucks and tell me that Ron DeSantis is going to win those women. You're out of your gourd, brother. All right. There is only one person who can win this election. It's just a fact. It's not my opinion. I don't think he'll ever change, though. I think the fact of the matter is he was anti-Trump before. He only became pro-Trump during. I don't like that. So, you know. Do you know? But I do know that he will vote for Donald Trump if Trump is the nominee. His thesis is shot to shit. It's gone. He's smarter than that. So that always makes me suspicious when I know someone is smart and they continue to play stupid. Like that polling thing last night. They knew their poll wasn't real. Do you know who's conducted deep opposition research regarding VR and what it revealed? Anything suspicious or bust here, but curious. You know, I think that what we've known about Vivek is out there. You know, there is a lot of stuff. I found myself a clip from when George Bush was running against John Kerry. And Vivek Ramaswamy was one of the questioners. So, you know, but he was young. And to me, I don't think that really matters because there's a lot of people who were anti-America First years ago that are America First now. And I have found that the converts are among the most solid and loyal. You know, if you're like an Obama voter from 08, and then you didn't vote in 12, and then you voted for Trump in 16, you're like the most diehard Trumper out there. So I just don't know that that kind of stuff matters. There is some op-eds I was going to ask him about. We've been in contact, and I'm sure he's got a good explanation. People can change their minds. People can change their minds. But there was this like, you know, cloning mice thing. It was crazy. But we'll see. I'm hoping he comes on. I know him and I will have a great conversation. We've been bouncing back and forth, and, you know, so far, you know, we haven't been able to land it, although he's on Jack right now. Oh my God, I got to go. I don't, again, I'll look into the Herrera Gonzalez race. Could the increase in Hispanic voter turnout be because the people identifying as Hispanic is changing since the term is a bit squishy? No, I don't think so. I would love to see Rich debate Ben Shapiro. Do you think that will ever happen? I'll debate Ben Shapiro. He's got no chance. He knows nothing about what I do. Do you ask respondents if they are active in local party politics? I've asked them that before. We haven't done that. No. Wow. What time do I have to get on there? Very, very, very soon. Governor Hemp in Georgia going to be the next golden boy. Jimmy Carter, Stone Cold Uniparty. Yeah, he is. Or he thinks he is. Honestly, he would not have won without the Trump vote. I don't care how much he won that primary by. He still would not have been able to beat Stacey Abrams. What we're seeing is that write-in vote is about 7 to 10 points everywhere. So, you know, he wants to go to war with Donald Trump. It's a little late now. He's been reelected to a second term, but he's going to kill any future national aspirations he clearly has. I would like Rich to address the very commonplace line I hear from many conservatives that Trump is a low ceiling and very high negatives that will ensure his defeat. Cliff, that's just a lie. It's just a lie. No one has a higher ceiling proven than Donald Trump. That's BS caused by old world thinking. The fact is, Donald Trump was beaten in 2020 when they threw everything. Think about everything they did, from COVID to lying about intelligence to the laptop, everything they did to beat this guy, stiffing him of his second and strongest debate. Yet he still added more votes than any incumbent president ever and lost by fewer votes than he won in 2016. Republicans forgot that they're losers at the national level. It is not the country to vote for anymore. That coalition is gone. They have no chance to put together a winning coalition without him and his voters. It's just a fact. That and Donald Trump is the only one where unfavorables don't see them to have the same pound for pound impact that they have on everyone else. There are people who dislike Donald Trump who still vote for him. And then the shine is off Joe Biden and all these other potential Democratic candidates that were viewed as decent in 2020. They had positive. Think about how little he lost to Joe Biden. He had a very negative, which is, by the way, his favorability is better now than it was when he went against Joe Biden. And Joe Biden was popular. Plus, he was in the plus territory. Now Joe Biden is in the negative territory as well. And when you have Trump go up against somebody else who's seen that way, he takes the voters who have a negative view of both of them. That's why Nate Cohen was having a connipshit when he released his poll showing it's now a tied race, which was a 9-point swing because Nate had Biden up by 9 going into 2020. It was a panic moment for him because that was not the case in 2020. It was in 16 against Hillary. All right. So that, and we're talking about competence here. And presidential elections are A/B tests. And they're going to pick whether or not they think Joe Biden is more competent. They think Donald Trump is more competent. It's a matter of getting the many people as you can out. And Republicans are not able to turn out. It doesn't matter how popular they may look in the poll. They can't get these people out. Mitt Romney was not unpopular. He got his ass kicked because nobody came out to vote for him. And by the way, as it turns out, Trump would have beaten Obama. And Obama was really worried about Donald Trump, even though he had high negatives back then. They weren't worried about Mitt Romney. That was a gaslight. They wanted you to nominate Mitt Romney, and that you did. They were terrified of Donald Trump. And even still, when going into 16, the only one they feared was Donald Trump. It's in the emails WikiLeaks dropped.
And it's because of his celebrity and his swagger, and people, whether they want to admit it or not, are kind of jealous of him. They want to be like him. Guys kind of idolize him. Girls think the swag is sexy, even though, they may not personally think he's even good looking. He's just like, look at him. I like that about a man. He's an alpha. He takes what he wants. Women like that crap. Let's get real. I don't care if it's the year 2023 or not. Women still like real men. And that's what they were afraid of. They were afraid of him. And as it turns out, if you look at the voters he got in 2016, he would have beaten Barack Obama. He would have. That's why they were worried. Will we do the Civil War question next poll? We're going to decide, what we're going to put in the next poll. Like I said, I wanted to keep it relatively simple. I think it is about time to put something like that in there. His PAC is violating campaign finance laws. Yes, they are. Doesn't that basically look like a noose for DeSantis if he wins no matter what? How does that legal liability not disqualify him? And this is something they're just kidding themselves. Never Trump thinks they're not going to be prosecuted too. The establishment, and now he is Never Trump. Let's get honest. The same people pushing DeSantis are the same Never Trumpers from Ted Cruz in 2016. DeSantis is Never Trump. It is. You don't hire people who are Never Trump if you're not too. He's got problems, and they're also going to, if he did get the nomination, they were going to go after him for the Martha's Vineyard reassignment of migrants. It's already in the works, already in the Justice Department. It's an open secret. Who the hell still listens to Karl Rove? Why does he still have influence in the GOP? Fox News, period. It does the GOP establishment really want to win? Because if Fox News stopped allowing him to have a platform, the donors really wouldn't give a damn what he has to say, and that would go from there. Does the GOP establishment really want to win? Is the answer is no. Honestly. My Q&A question, Laura Boebert won comfortably in 20, but almost lost in 22. Was that because her district is getting more blue, or too many working class stayed home in the midterms? Both. Matthew Maceda, that, and she's getting to be unpalatable, but it wouldn't matter. With Trump on the ballot, he's going to bring more people in. Do you think the Republican Party after Trump are at risk of losing Kansas at the presidential level? Yeah, we were talking about this on Locals the other day. Matthew, that's Indiana, some of the Plain states and the Western Ruby Red states that appear to be Ruby Red. Excuse me. Kansas is a great example. I do. I think that Nebraska could be another one as well. I know it looks Ruby Red, but they're becoming more financial in their economy. And as I tell everyone a million times, politics is economics, or economics is politics. Excuse me. Last question. That's good because I know I'm up against Jack here. Hope you had a fun summer. Hector. More of an easygoing question for Rich. Best Italian restaurant in New York City or New Jersey, according to the Italian of the house. E-Town in New Jersey is Spiritos. Elizabeth is what I'm talking about. I personally used to love this place. I don't even know if they're there anymore, but I think about it often. It's called the Spiritos. And they were, I don't even want to talk about. Because they're just fantastic. That was my personal favorite. There's a lot of great ones. There are a lot of great ones in New York City as well. But I always thought that I could go to E-Town, pay a lot less, and get phenomenal food. Like, I like the Spiritos better. So for me, it was a no-brainer. There's some really good ones though. My God, really good ones. So with that in mind, don't forget to sign up for Locals, folks. Don't forget to sign up for Locals. And of course, the Public Polling Project is there. You'll be seeing a lot of stuff change with the website. I thought that this was a good format to get our stuff out there more, to get more exposure for the Public Polling Project, because in every single press release we do now, it'll be there. Locals, you will always get the poll first. But I think this is a great way for us to build. All right. Jack Posobiec in 5 minutes, guys. Go tune in. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. As always, nothing but love for you. Go check out jamandbean.com. Use the promo code TPP40. And yes, you still can use the 4Patriots code TPP10. But they ran out of that Labor Day deal. So that sucks. The Labor Day deal that's on the front page right now, it was awesome. And they ran out of it as we were going on the air. I was going to give it to you guys anyway, even though we're technically I think they're taking a break this month from advertising. We'll see. But Jam and Bean, check them out. DPP 40. You could always still use the code for Patriots, though, guys. You can. I don't know. All the best, folks. Nothing but love for you. Yeah. Love this. I think I'm going to write my own song for Inside the Numbers. What do you think, folks? Nothing but me and my gold top 57 Les Paul gold top, Silver Jubilee lead channel. What? Have a safe weekend, guys. Enjoy your Labor Day. I think Farns and I are going to do one, but I don't have it confirmed yet. I'm out.